Welcome to our medieval theme park by Brian Opticar and Remington Manor. This ride is a low-intensity ride that focuses on life as a peasant and life as a woman. During the High Middle Ages, the population surged from 35 to 80 million, with 90% being peasants in the countryside or residing in small villages or manors. These towns evolved around castles fortified with walls and moats for defense. Life was challenging, centered on laboring the land with minimal comforts in food and shelter. Children faced a 50% chance of surviving past 1 year, and those who did often began working for their family at the age of 12. Life as a woman was difficult as they played a supporting role in a man's life, mostly running the household. Women who were widows had a bit more control over what they wanted to do with their lives, but were legally restricted to their roles. Women would help by working on the farm, such as planting food and tending to livestock, and out of the farm, such as making textiles, cooking, and taking care of the children and house. Middle-class women could be seen helping out the family or local business, such as shop keeping, innkeeping, and others. And richer women could even be merchants. Women played a large role in trading the family to get what they need. In the church, women could only be nuns and were unable to become priests. The most notable woman from the Middle Ages was Joan of Arc, who is famous for coming from a peasant family to go on to leading the French army to a victory of Orleans in 1492, helping the French against the English in the Hundred-Year War. Experience a wide variety of scenes that show what life was like in the medieval period on this ride. This is the church ride. The church wielded immense power in medieval Europe, despite clergy often lacking knowledge. Questioning the church faced harsh consequences, with authority never challenged. The church imposed a 10% tax, accumulating wealth and fostering corruption. Its hierarchy included the pope, cardinals, archbishops or bishops, priests, and monarchist orders. While contributing to literacy and community support, the church's downfall began with the plague and was further signaled by critics like Martin Luther, challenging greed and biblical authority. The coaster takes you out on a sightful, thrilling experience. Get ready to see the ins and outs of what a church could have looked like during the medieval times. This is the Crusader. The Crusades, a high Middle Age movement, aimed to spread Christianity in the Middle East. Pope Urban II united Europeans by promising forgiveness for sin to Crusaders. Benefits included trade, bringing back spices, soaps, and introducing the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Despite successful initial crusades to retake Jerusalem, subsequent ones faced challenges. The coaster depicts the Crusades' ups and downs, illustrating unity amid adversity. This amenity is the sword shop. The sword is one of the most well-known weapons from any time around the world, and it was during the medieval times that they became widespread. The first swords were made out of iron, but as heavy as they weren't very strong, so the switch to steel caused them to become lighter and stronger, letting soldiers have more accurate and precise swings without causing as much fatigue as before. The sword saw many iterations, such as the longsword, falchion, arming sword, the beautiful craftsmanship of the rapier, and the broadsword, which saw the most widespread use for its cutting abilities rather than thrusting capabilities. In result, sword fighting, which is this amenity right here, also became a pastime and is an important part of medieval culture. Next, we have an amenity. This amenity is food. This is a modernized version of the medieval diet. The medieval diet was heavily carb-focused, with an emphasis on bread and cereal made from barley, rye, oats, and wheat usually. Meat like fish, cod, carp, and perch were common, along with venison, beef, and pork. Due to the gap of the wealthy versus the poor would usually get lower quality cuts of meat, and the rich could be seen enjoying peacock and swan on special occasions. Vegetables abundantly used, especially with cabbage, onions, turnips, and carrots due to their cheap price and abundance. Spices were reserved for the rich, such as black pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and ginger. Grab a bite to eat and taste the different foods that peasants or royalty would have eaten in medieval times at this station. Feudalism, or the feudal system, prevailed politically and economically from the 5th to the 12th century. Working class citizens secured livelihoods through loyalty, military service, or contributions. In exchange, they received land from the king, who technically owned all the land. This created a sense of gratitude, although it was a false notion. The system was class-based, with the king at the top, the military in the middle, and peasants and farmers at the bottom. This ride is placed in a castle to signify where the power was in the system and where the people would have to go to obtain it. This is the modernized version of the bathrooms from medieval times. The use of bathrooms from the medieval times would now often be found as unsanitary and vile, as the feces would often be dropped immediately into a cesspit, of which Richard de Racquerie fell into one in 1326 and subsequently drowned. Some of the most common ways to go was through a chamber pot, which was just a normal designated bucket for one to drop their contents, and the commode chair was found as an upgrade to the chamber pot, as it had the pot built into the chair, but still needed to be thrown away. To dispose of the waste, one would need to dispose of it via the town cesspool, waste pit, manure, and illegally, but sometimes thrown into the street. Due to not all people having private places in their own homes to go, public bathrooms were frequent. Discovered London latrine was found to have 2 rows of 64 seats, with the waste being thrown into the River Fleet, which flowed into the River Thames. This is the trebuchet ride. The trebuchet, a powerful siege tool, surpassed the catapult in launching projectiles due to its 360-degree motion, compared to the catapult's 180 degrees. This allowed for a longer range of motion and higher speeds, resulting in greater damage. Trebuchets could launch 440 to 660 pound projectiles, far exceeding the 10 to 25 pounds of catapults. Despite a slower reload, the trebuchet delivered substantial firepower, hitting enemies hard and quickly. Experience the power of the trebuchet in its entire 360-degree spin on this ride. See, at the new arena how jousting, a major European sport from the 13th to 16th century, featured 2 riders charging at each other from opposing sides. As they approached, their aim was to hit and shatter each other's lance. This era act allowed knights to gain honor and impress ladies, who might throw a scarf in admiration. Plentiful armor and lances with a 3 to 4 pointed head reduced fatalities, though death still occurred. Jousting declined towards the end of the Middle Ages, persisting in some circles until the 19th century. Talk to real knights about their experience with jousting in this arena. This ride is the Plague. Known as the Black Death, it wreaked havoc in medieval times. Sailors returning home with black boils marked its onset. The Black Death caused swellings with blood and pus, leading to fevers, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, aches, and death. The bubonic plague attacked the lymphatic system, inducing fevers, headaches, and weaknesses from flea bites. Untreated cases often resulted in death, and many doctors turned away plague patients. Septemic plague, multiplying plague bacteria in the blood, caused fevers, chills, prostration, abdominal pain, shock, and bleeding, but did not spread person to person. Be warned, this ride is known to give riders symptoms of the plague and has caused death. This spin-inducing ride sends rider back in time to experience the change in language that happened throughout the medieval period. Middle English spanned 3 periods. Early Modern English, 1100 to 1250, using the Old English writing system. Central Middle English, 1250 to 1400, marked by Anglo-Norman writing and in London dialects. Late Middle English, 1400 to 1500. Featured splits between Scottish and other northern dialects versus London dialects. This era witnessed the emergence of modern English. Grammatical gender, once present, has evolved into the natural gender system in modern English. However, grammatical gender persists in languages like Spain. Middle English was categorized into Southern, Midland, and Northern dialect groups.